From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
It's been a challenge, but cotton planters are rolling.
There's a little urgency to trying to get it planted right now.
We'll check progress in Louisiana. Plus, Machinery Pete has his eye on a few interesting auctions this June. And ag economists weigh in on farm income.
I think it's important to remind ourselves the changes happen really quickly.
The latest from the Ag Economist Monthly Monitor as we celebrate Pork Week with a look at profitability.
But export demand has still been pretty good.
Where is the industry headed? Next on AgDay.
AgDay, presented by Pioneer. What's next happens when the testing grounds meet the proving grounds. Pioneer. What's next happens here.
Good morning, I'm Clint Griffiths. After climbing back above the $100 mark, lean hog futures have retreated over the past month. It's all part of a volatile 2024 as the industry searches for direction. AgDay's Michelle Rook joins us as we start Pork Week. And Michelle, 2023 was not a good year for pork profitability. So does 2024 look any better?
Well, Clint, U.S. pork producers just came off the worst 18 months of negative profit margins in history, even 1998. And there was some optimism when hog futures rallied to contract highs at around $110 this spring that 2024 would be a more profitable year. However, that hope has faded. Pork margins started off 2024 in the black, but spring and summer month hog futures have set back $15 to $17 from the contract highs set in mid-April. One noted economist says cash and cutouts just stalled, pulling down the futures and cutting into break-even and profit levels.
It has gotten progressively worse since March. Back in March, the model that I have, which is based on historical Iowa State University estimated cost of returns, had about $10 a head in it. Now, that's for probably the low-cost 25% of producers, which I think the Iowa State model really represents. So that was about $10 a head back in March. That model last week had minus $4. And it's mainly been a reduction on the revenue side because of the sell-off we've seen on the lean hog futures market.
However, Meyer says the cost of production has also increased.
We had about $85 a hundredweight in that cost model back in March. It's almost $88 now. So the uncertainty of getting this crop planted has kind of put a little fuel on the corn and soybean meal markets and cost us some.
Cash and the lean hog index have also been stagnant as pork cutouts have been flat during April and May. Meyer says cutouts usually have a seasonal rally of $6 to $8 in the spring. He says it's not tied to hog supplies, but instead soft demand.
But export demand has still been pretty good, so I don't think that's where it is. And if we look on the real per capita expenditures, pork real per capita expenditures down almost 5% year to date through March. So that tells us that really the softness that we see is on the consumer side in the United States.
He's concerned about the slower demand with supplies ramping up into the fourth quarter as weekly hog slaughter pushes over 2.7 million head, which will squeeze processing capacity. Meyer says that could mean additional pressure on cash and cutouts moving forward. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Now, the dairy industry continues to monitor the outbreak of H5N1 in dairy cattle following reports of a third farm worker catching the virus. The news breaking late last week of a Michigan dairy worker contracting the H5N1 virus following close contact with infected cows. Unlike previous cases, this man experienced respiratory symptoms, including a cough. He was given antiviral drugs and is reported to be recovering. Now, so far, health officials say there's no evidence the virus is spreading person to person, but they are urging those working around infected cows to utilize personal protective equipment. Dairy leaders in other states are watching the issue closely.
We'll do whatever is necessary to keep our employees safe. They're very reliable to us. They show up for work. We just hope that it doesn't become a serious health issue, and we'll have to take the measures appropriate if it does become a health issue.
Now, at the end of last week, USDA had confirmed the virus in 67 infected livestock herds across 9 states. It continues to monitor the situation and stress that the nation's milk and dairy supplies remain safe. A massive fire killed millions of chickens in southern Illinois. Crews were called last Wednesday night to a fire at Farina Farms Poultry Farm in Marion County. 27 fire departments and 100 firefighters responding to the scene, where at least 3 buildings on the farm were in flames. It was reported the smoke from the fire could be seen from miles away. It's not clear what sparked that blaze. No injuries were reported. A few days of clear skies may not hold for long. Meteorologist Martin Lormore has a look ahead in our first forecast.
Yeah, it has been a calm past couple of days. Now, we're still seeing that very warm weather over parts of the south, still seeing temperatures actually over 100 degrees in parts of Phoenix, San Antonio, and Brownsville. Miami's sitting at 93, and as we get into the next several days, we're unfortunately going to be seeing this actually escaping across parts of the Four Corners and in the Mojave Desert. We can see we're going to cool down as we get into our overnight. Temperatures still in the 70s across these warmer parts of the country, and then look at how high these 90s start reaching up. Amarillo, Tulsa, Oklahoma City, even getting towards parts of Wichita near 90 degrees, and Amarillo already getting into the panhandles of Oklahoma and Texas nearing 100 degrees. That is a trend that's not going to be stopping as we get into our midweek. We're seeing the rain moving its way across parts of the central and eastern parts of the country, but very dry and very warm across the Four Corners and into the Mojave. So keep on the watch out as temperatures are on the rise. And look at this beautiful shot from Lindsay Pound. This is over in Adrian County, Missouri. She said they finished up planting last week in some cornfields already knee-high, while others are being tilled up and replanted. She's thankful for the gorgeous night at the farm. Thanks for sending this in, Lindsay. You'll have that full forecast coming up.
Headwinds are blowing against the ag economy this year as grain prices fall and exports look tepid. As Tyne Morgan shows us, even the nation's agricultural economists are unsure exactly how it all shakes out in 2024.
The push to plant continues for some farmers to close out May, while others have wrapped up. And with some improvement in commodity prices, ag economists are growing slightly more optimistic on the ag economy.
I think you can look at things like crops in South America. You know, we've had some disease issues in places like Argentina. We've had some wet weather in Brazil. Some of those things I think have been helpful to boost prices at the same time.
University of Missouri's Scott Brown helps author the Ag Economist Monthly Monitor, a joint survey conducted by the University of Missouri and Farm Journal each month.
The wheat situation in Russia, I think, has also been important. I think it's important to remind ourselves the changes happen really quickly. The volatility up and down is going to continue in front of us.
Even with more optimism for some commodities, ag economists' views on the net farm income picture did erode, falling from the $117.82 billion projected last month to just $110.4 billion this month. But Arlen Suderman, one of the ag economists surveyed each month, says even with the global grain and oilseed supply weather issues, his outlook on the ag economy hasn't really changed.
I don't think it really has. If anything, I think it's become a little bit more challenging. But I say that within the context, I think that the new world we're in is going to have more challenges, but those challenges will also create more opportunities. It just means we're going to have to be more strategic.
The April survey found nearly 80% of ag economists think current commodity prices plus higher input and operating costs will spur consolidation within the row crop sector. So this month, the survey then asked what purchasing decisions may take a hit in the months ahead. And top of the list was equipment.
Almost everyone thought that was one place where we would see cutbacks in terms of trying to reduce costs.
50% of ag economists say reduced machinery purchases is most likely, and another 50% said somewhat likely.
I think in the short term, the easy answer is they'll scale back on equipment purchases, and we've seen that.
Another change ag economists think farmers will make is to slow technology upgrades, with 35% saying likely and 41% saying somewhat likely. The monthly monitor also found ag economists think more farmers will make the switch to more generic products, with 73% surveyed saying that's somewhat likely. But another major change for the upcoming year could be farmers looking for lower interest rates.
It was really, can I use technology better to reduce application rates on the fertilizer side? What's my current fertility program? Have I been doing really well, so maybe I can cut back for at least a year? Those were some of the big ones.
As more farmers possibly look at ways to cut back on spending, volatile commodity prices are proving that the direction of prices hinges on more than just supply and demand.
this idea of how do I reduce cost when the prices for those inputs maybe aren't going to change as much as they would like, and how do I manage those margins is really, there are going to be some opportunities to do that to try to make 2025 a better year.
Grains find little direction while cattle markets stay red. We'll talk about prices and trends for June coming up. And later, Machinery Pete isn't giving us sale prices. He's sharing a sneak peek at what's for sale this month, coming up after weather. Grain started strong on Friday, but struggled to hold on to those gains. Michelle Rook is back with what happened and a look ahead at June in markets now.
Grains closing out the week mostly lower. Naomi Bloom with Total Farm Marketing is back with us. All right, Naomi, lower weekly closes in the grains last week. Are we looking tired, starting to top? What's going on in that market?
Well, it was more a matter of the weekly crop progress ratings last week coming in pretty much near 5-year averages. And so in spite of all of that rainy weather that we had, farmers were getting the crop in. And so without any big new fresh news, the market, when you're looking at charts, was up against some resistance levels. And we didn't have enough friendly news to justify working higher. So I think what we're seeing is a correction. It is seeming to be a little too premature to say that it's going to be a record crop, it's going to be a perfect crop. And of course, Monday afternoon's crop progress ratings for this week will really paint a new story, a new picture. You know, we came across that final prevent plant date for corn, and there's still going to be millions of acres not in the ground planted. So traders are going to be eager to see where those acres are, in which states, and what's the likelihood of the crop getting in the ground or not. And then we're going to, of course, continue to shift our focus onto weather. And then we have a June 12th USDA report coming up right after that as well.
So we're kind of in that transition, and a lot of it depends on what the funds do from here on out, right?
Well, that's another great point, too, because the funds had been slowly exiting those short positions in corn and soybeans and wheat. And then all of a sudden this past week, we saw the funds just start selling again. And so the question becomes, do they think that everything is going to be a perfect crop and a record crop? Or was this more to do with month-end position squaring? And now that the calendar has flipped to June, will we see them do a different type of trading activity as they then start to finish out the second quarter with month trading during the June timeframe? So crop progress ratings are going to be something to watch, the weather, and you're right, the funds.
And the seasonals, right?
Yeah, seasonals are something to be mindful of as well. And that's the one thing that still gives us that element of hope, where seasonals for December corn and November soybeans do have a tendency to show that the market price can resume an uptrend during the first couple weeks of June.
Thanks, Naomi. Naomi Bloom with Total Farm Marketing. We'll have more AgDay coming up. Watch Markets Now with Michelle Rook on the Farm Journal YouTube channel, keeping you updated throughout the day on the markets at the open, midday, and close. Find out what moved the markets today and what to expect the market to do next.
Yeah, drought monitor still looking to be on the higher side across some parts of the country. If you missed us, we had a new one coming in yesterday, and well, now we're starting to see some of that fruit starting to, unfortunately, making its way across parts of the western parts of the country where they are seeing some very significant drought beginning to spread. You could see again western Kansas, even parts of Montana now starting to get toward that extreme drought. Meanwhile, almost the entirety of the state of New Mexico sitting under a moderate drought or higher, including the only spot in the country where they're sitting under exceptional drought. And also Florida, especially about the southern half of Florida, really seeing that wildfires making its way across parts of the state, bringing in that drought. So again, a lot of dry areas. Unfortunately, some places not really wanting to see the rain, going to start seeing other places that have seen the rain. They're going to see more of it. So as we get into the rest of this week, again, places that just don't really need to see the rain, the eastern parts of the country where they have been seeing that flooding going on with these storms that have been pushing through. Not unfortunately, a lot is going to be coming in places that actually need it. Again, parts of West Texas in toward New Mexico, not a lot there. Western Kansas, just a bit of a sprinkle, and parts of Florida, again, just not a lot of rain in places that need it. Unfortunately, again, a lot of the areas in the Ohio River Valley stretching into New England, we'll be seeing that rain areas that don't necessarily need to see more of it. But again, looking at the precipitation outlook you're seeing, as we get into the near future, we could start seeing some more rainfall making its way into those areas that desperately need that rainfall. Still looking at very dry conditions across Florida and also up toward the Pacific Northwest, where drought conditions are getting a little bit worse. We're expecting to see those areas to stay dry into the next several days. But with that high pressure, it's going to be developing across the western part of the country. Extremely warm temperatures will be expected as we get into that June. So let's take a look at the jet stream as we get into the next couple of days. As we watch this high pressure beginning to build its way in on that Tuesday, that's going to bring what we call a heat dome effect, a very area of very high pressure and very warm air, very still air for that late part of our work week. We're seeing a lot of those conditions staying very, very warm, and this heat dome is not expected to really go away anytime soon, but we could start seeing some cooler areas in parts of the Great Lakes and into the Rust Belt. Greeley, Colorado, cool, high 60 degrees, mostly sunny. Whitesboro, Oklahoma, a little bit warmer, high 83 degrees with scattered thunderstorms. And finally, Valdosta, Georgia, South Georgia, high, it's gonna be hot, 92.
Machinery Pete has his eye on some sweet auctions happening this month. We'll tell you what's in them coming up next. And later, racing to get cotton planted in Louisiana amid a myriad of weather challenges. While Machinery Pete is great about reporting the latest prices, he's also keeping tabs on what's ahead.
Well, you know, as much as I love talking about auction sale prices after the fact, it's just as fun to look ahead and see what's coming up. So in the month of June here, we've got some very nice farm auctions coming down the pipeline. And one I got my eye on is an online farm retirement auction Wednesday, June 26th in Ann Arbor, Michigan by Sheridan Realty and Auction. Now let's take a look at a few of the lead items on the sale. Here is a 22 model Kinsey 4705 36 row 20-inch planter. It's got 1,532 acres on it. Now, I've only seen one of these rigs ever sold at auction, and that was back on a farm retirement sale December 5th of 22 in Hamlin, Iowa. We filmed that auction for our Machinery Pete TV show. That was a 21 model, had 1,800 acres on it, and that thing sold for $326,000. Now, one of the lead tractors on the sale Wednesday, June 26th is this 2014 John Deere 9360R, four-wheel drive, 3,679 hours with a 3-point. Of course, we've talked a lot lately about how used four-wheel drive tractors with a bit of age on them have been very hot. The average auction price last year on a John Deere 9360R was $154,160. I saw them go as high as $242,000 and down as low as $51,250. Now here's a picture of that highest one last year, $242,000. This thing sold December 9th of 23 on a farm auction in New Riegel, Ohio. It was a 13 model, 1,017 hours, second owner. Now the combine on the auction June 26th in Ann Arbor, Michigan is this 2010 Case H 8120. In the last 17 months, I've seen 27 8120 sold at auction. Average sale price, $58,408.
All right, thanks, Pete. Well, some of that new equipment might come in handy for farmers still trying to get a crop planted. We'll check on cotton planting in Louisiana next. The first half of May was wet for much of Louisiana's cotton belt, which kept many farmers from planting. Now, as Craig Gautreaux of the LSU Ag Center reports, the pendulum has swung and farmers are racing to get their cotton planted before it gets too dry.
Seeing planters racing across fields in Louisiana has been a common sight recently. A wet early May delayed cotton planting for many farmers, and now they are chasing the last bit of moisture in their fields as the weather has changed significantly.
Because it's so hot and the wind's blowing really good, that it's causing the fields to dry out really fast. So there's a little urgency to trying to get it planted right now.
Miller is an extension agent in Concordia and Catahoula parishes. In Catahoula, cotton is one of the larger row crops.
We have a lot of cotton planted here because of a lot of our acres are non-irrigated, and cotton typically is a more drought-tolerant crop as opposed to like corn or soybeans.
In the past 25 years, Louisiana cotton acres have decreased nearly 70%, but this year there seemed to be an interest in farmers planting more cotton. The rough start in May and stagnant prices for cotton may have tamped down some of that interest.
The price of cotton is still the same as it was in 1990. So, you know, people are getting turned off by it, and the beans are a lot easier to plant now and farm.
Branton is increasing his acres this year because he and his wife took over a local gin, and he wants that operation to succeed.
We're really not keeping any profits in the gin anymore to entice more cotton, to keep the gin going and the people that work there employed. That's the most important thing to me.
Cotton is an expensive crop to grow and harvest. New baleage pickers can cost nearly $1 million. With the LSU Ag Center, this is Craig Otro reporting.
All right, thanks, Craig. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.